This podcast is produced by the Fireside Chat Club of Canada.
Hello, and welcome to Canada as I See It. So, I'm going through my notes here, and my goodness, do we have a lot to go through this week. Welcome to Canada as I See It, show number 60. I'd like to thank Cynthia for introducing the program this week. Cynthia is another one of my friends from university. There have been a couple of get-togethers recently, and Cynthia was one of the fortunate ones to be a part of what has been called the 2 a.m. Club. Her introduction was recorded around that time, but you really wouldn't know it. A true professional. Cynthia is actually a film and TV producer. One of the more recent programs she's worked on is CBC Television's Working Moms. Today is December 15th, and here are a couple of events from Canadian history on this date. In 1878, tell me if this sounds the least bit familiar to things that might or might not be happening right now. In 1878, John A. Macdonald's Liberal Conservative Party adopts a high-tariff national policy platform due to frustration in restoring freer trade with the U.S. The party opts for protective tariffs while keeping the door open to reciprocity where possible. And all this happened in Toronto in 1878. In 2009, there was a large blackout that hit Toronto. That's December the 15th in 2009. It affected approximately 215,000 people. Now, this blackout is not to be confused with the really big one from 2003, and that affected most of the northeastern United States and most areas of Ontario. And that was several days long, that one. So, today, we're going to talk about the CN Tower. This is the tallest freestanding structure in the Western Hemisphere. It stands at 553.3 meters. That's 1,815 feet 5 inches for the rest, y'all. And it was once the tallest in the world, a record held for 32 years. Now, you might wonder what took over the CN Tower's record. And it was actually the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. And it stands 828 meters, or 2,716 feet. That building is actually a building, too. It's a skyscraper, but it has offices and residential apartments, restaurants, hotels. Now, the CN Tower does have a couple of restaurants, but it's primarily a communications tower. Now, there are a few more, actually, who have since bypassed the CN Tower. Let's see, there's the Merdeka 118, and that's 678.9 meters in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. In Tokyo, we have the Tokyo Sky Tree at 634 meters, or 2,080 feet. And that's actually a transmission tower. It has a restaurant and a cafe as well. That's pretty close to what the CN Tower is. In Shanghai, China, there's the Shanghai Tower at 632 meters, or 2,073 feet. And that's a residential building with some observation areas and some office space. And let's see, there's the Canton Tower, also in China, in Guangzhou, That's a communications tower at 1,982 feet. The Macca Clock Royal Tower. My goodness, there are a few more here, aren't there? The Macca Clock Royal Tower at 1,972 feet in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The Ping An International Finance Center, an office building with some retail. That's in Shenzhen, China. The Golden Finance 117 in Tianjin, China. That's a hotel as well. The Lotte World Tower in Seoul, South Korea. And again, retail, residential, hotel, offices. And then, number 10 now worldwide, the CN Tower at 553.3 meters tall. Now, we may be number 10 worldwide now, but as far as height records go, the CN Tower does still hold the following. It has the highest public observation gallery at 1,467 feet. That's the Sky Pod, the little tiny area, if you're looking at the tower, the little tiny area closer to the top. We have the longest metal staircase at 2,579 steps. Again, that's up to Sky Pod. The CN Tower also has the world's highest wine cellar, which kind of, if you think about it, a cellar that high, but wine cellar is a different thing. That's at 1,151 feet. And also at that level is the world's highest and largest revolving restaurant, 360, at 1,151 feet. Now, I mentioned all those numbers, and no, there won't be a test, and you don't have to add them all up for me. Although if you did, I'd really be interested to see what it came up to. But anyway, none of those records actually has anything to do with the original purpose and impetus for building the tower. In the 1960s and 70s, Toronto was a rapidly growing city. Due to this and the proliferation of taller and taller skyscrapers, terrestrial radio and TV reception in the city was really affected. Now, by that, I mean terrestrial radio, AM and FM, and TV reception, which at the time in the 60s and 70s was primarily sent to you by over the air. You put an antenna on your house and picked up the stations. Now, city planners proposed the tower as a base of operations for all radio and TV transmitters. It was actually going to be the base for a new city center, something really that should have been completed by the early 70s. But bureaucracy being what it is, plans got changed or canceled, and the tower found itself in the middle of a collection of rail lands. You may notice that actually directly across the street from the tower is a turnaround for rail cars, and that's actually been incorporated into a restaurant, a museum, and there's a little train that makes its way around the lands there. And, well, you think with all these trains and tracks in the area, you'd probably guess if you didn't know, the CN Tower was actually built under the guidance and ownership of CN Rail. And that's how you got the name, CN Tower. It currently is under the control of Canada Lands Corporation, a government agency. Now, I know the city wanted to make the CN Tower part of a new city center, and, well, it finally came to pass. It took 30 years, but the city finally caught up, and the tower is now part of an entertainment complex that contains the Rogers Centre, all previously known as Skydome. That's where the Toronto Blue Jays play. Directly next door to the east of the tower, we have Ripley's Aquarium of Canada. And further down the road, at York Street, we have the Scotiabank Arena, and that's where the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Raptors play. So I've mentioned to other people, sometimes if every or each one of those teams has a home game, if the Leafs or the Raptors are playing, Sometimes the Blue Jays can have a game on the same day, and then there's the crowd at the aquarium. My goodness, you can get upwards of 150, 200,000 people roaming that area at the same time. That is a city center, definitely. So while the tower, it does function as a broadcast tower still, because we do still receive radio signals over the air, but not so much for TV anymore. But I actually have toured the transmitter room at the tower, and that's below the restaurant and behind the radome. That's that white sort of donut-shaped collar that goes around the base of the, quote, middle part of the tower. And it's really, well, for me especially, it's a place that you have to crouch to get into. But for the most part, the tower is known as a tourist attraction. It does have a theater. There's some grab-and-go food services, a floor-to-ceiling glassed-in observation level, a glass floor in both the elevators, and on the lowest level, you'd actually be surprised at the number of people who think that they have to go to a higher level to look through the glass floor to see the ground. Caroline's told me about people asking about that. I mean, just think about it. You have to go further underneath something to see down. But anyway. And of course, they have the full-service restaurant. It originally was known as the Top of Toronto, which was accurate, but since 1994, it's been called the 360 Restaurant, giving you a full 360-degree view of the city. It does rotate at one revolution every 72 minutes. So if perchance you're at a window seat and you happen to leave a parcel or your purse or something like that on the windowsill and it disappears, well, just wait an hour or so and it'll come back around to you eventually. Hopefully, if you're lucky, with more money in it than you had before you left it on the windowsill. There's always possibilities, I suppose. If you would like to help me and introduce the podcast like Cynthia did earlier on, please contact me at asiseeit@warpole.ca. And in this introduction, please say the following. This podcast is produced by the Fireside Chat Club of Canada. A couple of weeks ago at our get-together, I got about 8 people to record for me, and we had another one of those at a smaller location downtown, and it was great. There are a few more friends who hadn't made it out to the first one. Great to see them, and I've got a couple more recordings, so if you want to get your name in there, and I'll mention your name, and if you want to tell me a little bit about yourself, please do so, and that would be fantastic. So that's it for today's show. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again next week. And that's a part of Canada as I see it. It is written and produced by me, James Warpole, and brought to life by the Fireside Chat Club of Canada. Our theme song is Night Owls by Braden Deal. If you have any questions or comments, please email me at asiseeit@warpole.ca. Join us every Sunday for another episode of Canada as I See It.